All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Inside in Tennis podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Michals. This show is, as always, on the Believe Network and available wherever you get your podcasts as we gear up for some great tennis around the globe. We've got the Sunshine Double of Indian Wells, Miami coming up. There's still tons of great tennis and a lot of it taking place in the United States. Joining me now, friend of the show, she writes for Tennis Connected, other platforms, co-host of the 3 podcast, very analytical, one of the sharpest minds that I've had the pleasure of speaking to, and was on site at the Delray Beach Open, which is turning into the best 250 or one of the best 250s around in men's tennis. But it's Amy Lundy back on the show. Amy, as always, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I'm super excited about the emergence of this little Delray tournament. It's so fun and funky, and the players really like it. So it was a fun week.
So, yeah, I wanted to start, and we'll get to the tennis side of it too, the specifics, but why do you think so many players, outside of a lot of them being American, but they have options, they also don't have to play, a lot of them in the high perch, but why do you think that they like playing in Delray? It's become a stop, it's become a lead up spot to really jumpstart this section of the season. Why do some of the biggest names in tennis like to play in Delray Beach?
Because they live around there, and it's kind of like a home tournament. It's really easy. They know the food and the accommodations and the prep and the conditions. They know the conditions really well. It's all going to be something that's controllable and a known entity. So it just makes it really easy. And like I think Fritz said, it might have been last year, like his choice is just to go home and practice or go home and play this tournament. And given the choice, he wants to play as opposed to practice. So it's a great way to just earn some bucks and get some reps in.
Yeah, Fritz is in that category of players that you probably would have to drag off the court. Like if there's a tournament to play, he wants to play. That's just who he is. But yeah, and there's another thing I saw you describe it, and I was hoping you'd elaborate on this as an artsy beach town. Do you have any elaboration on what Delray is as a town?
If you're an art person like, Riley Opelka, who I believe lives in Delray Beach, it is so cool walking down the streets and the side streets on the main drag, right there where the tennis center is. There are so many little galleries and outposts, and I left the tennis one night very late. It had to have been like 10 to 11, and there was like this street party going on in a park right next to the tennis center, and there were these drums, and I'm talking hundreds of people just dancing in a park. Okay, so it's very cool place. I love it. The weather is kind of a known entity, so it's a fun tournament for a 250. This is something I brought up with the players, Mitch, that I asked several of the players about, including Ruud and Fritz. The ATP last fall announced that they are going to be cutting back on the 250s. Yeah. And the goal is to bring it to, I believe they said 10 by the year 2028. I really think this one's going to survive.
Do you know what we're at right now? Like roughly, are we near 10?
Is it 16 or 17? Yeah. Something like that?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. That's a lot still to cut, unfortunately. That's a bigger discussion of what would be better for the players, the crowded calendar, which is obviously talked about. And I don't want to say I'm tired of talking about it, Amy, but I'm kind of tired of talking about it until something changes. Like we can complain, players can complain, but
changing. It's changing beneath our noses because I looked this up, several of the 250s have been erased, like Atlanta. There's some like San Diego that went down to
as well.
A challenger. Yeah, you can name them. The happy thing of this is that the fields for these 250s and the 500s and they're getting higher quality.
Yeah.
So if you live in South Florida and you have the opportunity to go see some tennis, any day that you get a ticket, you're going to see high quality, highly ranked players. So that's good. The downside for some people is that really just frankly, fewer people are making a living playing professional tennis. And that's what I asked Casper and Taylor. And they were, they were like, yeah, that's not good. But if it means overall big picture that tennis is getting more popular because the product is higher quality, then it's a business.
Yeah, that's a tough one because it seems like they're starting to slowly take care of the players, as you said, but is the depth of people, again, that can make a living, is that going to stay up or go down? But it is getting back to Delray. It is great, obviously, for these tournaments that you can speak to, Amy, that aren't as big, that the grounds might be a little smaller, that you can see the players operate, see them practice, and get player sound as well. What were some observations away from the matches themselves that you made this year covering Delray Beach?
I think that it was windy. We just happened to be in a stretch where it was maybe a little bit windier than usual. The East Coast of the United States this year is going through some sort of a Nino or Nina pattern. We're getting a ton of snow up and down the East Coast, not in Florida, obviously. But it was a little bit windier, so I think the players recognized that and understood that it wasn't going to be so straightforward, and there might need to be a little bit more, not grinding, but a little bit more keeping the ball in the court than you would see normally on a hard court. So there was that. I'm trying to think if there was anything else.
The wind in the final was pretty crazy. I mean, that's just like right on cue with how it was. And it is kind of cool. We see this in other sports, Amy. Like we just had the NFL season where people are like, wow, if it's a snow game in the playoffs, it's not great. Like it's not. But I'm on the other side of it a lot of the times. I think it's cool to see elite athletes struggle, like the U.S. Open in golf being the hardest one. It's kind of cool as a fan to watch the top athletes have to figure it out and maybe struggle a little bit.
This was news to me because my son plays football. They actually like playing in snow, a lot of them. Why? I don't know. I guess the elements and the challenge of all that is pretty fun. But yeah, in terms of like a big decision, Mitch, is whether to play Latin America, combine Latin America with some hard court, or just play the U.S. hard court leading up to Indian Wells. So it's a calculation that each player has to kind of make and strategize.
They do. They certainly do. And before we get to the results of the tournament, Amy, I did have one kind of question, and there might not be an answer for it, but I'm curious. You see some players practice and go through their routines. Is there anyone that stands out for being unique, like a different type of maybe practice or preparation? Any player that you saw where it might go against the grain of what is a typical player warm-up in practice?
I watched Tommy Paul and I watched Casper Ruud practice pretty much start to finish, and I was kind of struck by the differences. Ruud is very structured in how he practices, and he really kind of runs his own practice. Like he'll take returns, for example, and he will take first serve returns where he's standing in and he's practicing just bunting it back or chipping it back, and then he'll practice second serve returns where he actually stands back and takes a big crack, a la Rafa Nadal or Medvedev. So and then he'll tell them when, okay, I'm good, I've had enough. Tommy Paul's practice is a lot more just feel like, let's do this for a while. Let's do that. Let's play some points, or at least this one was.
Okay.
And it's like a good time.
Yeah,
almost.
Shocking.
But
that's
Ruud,
That's real shocking. It's pretty funny. It's just like, Ruud is more buttoned up and Tommy Paul's free flowing. Shocking. But it serves both of those pros well. I know it didn't go as well for Casper. And getting to the final and how this tournament was won, it was Sebastian Korda. It's like every time I see it, Amy, it's like that Godfather 3 quote. Like every time I'm out, I'm right back. He pulls me right back in. Like I haven't sold my Sebastian Korda stock. There's been ups. There's been a lot of downs. He was top 15. It hasn't happened. There's been health issues. But when you see him put it together and when you see him play at his best, you realize again, like you're kind of starstruck, like this is a top elite player. And he put it all on display, running through Ruud, Kaboli, and then Tommy Paul in straight sets in the final, Amy. It was a masterclass on what Sebi Korda can do at the elite level.
I learned a lot about him. I watched the Alex Michelsen match that Korda played, which is a very tight match that could have gone either way from start to finish. And I actually moved around the stadium because there weren't that many people there. I was trying to figure out how Korda was handling Michelsen's backhand, which when I first started watching the match, it is so flat and so penetrating that it doesn't look like it's going to clear the net from certain angles. And yet it does time and time and time again. He really doesn't make that many errors off of it. It just seems like a nightmare. One of those things where as an opponent, you see time and time again on the baseline, they're going to the Conti grip, just trying to spoon it out and get it back over. But a lot of times they end up just putting it right back in the net. And I asked, Korda gets through that match, right?
Yeah.
And I asked him how did you do it? And he told me that, he had lost to Alex in Brisbane, I believe, early this year. And he told me how he made an effort to avoid the backhand and run patterns. I mean, sometimes you got to go, defense goes cross or whatever, but he ran specific patterns to try to avoid the backhand as much as possible. So what I see in Korda is a player who is developing tactically. And when he's healthy, like you said, you see what he's capable of.
That's such a good anecdote. And it also led into that final because for as great as his game looks, I do think Korda, and there's evidence now, he's an underrated strategist because I thought in the final he had a brilliant game plan. And I know in my novice brain of understanding tactics, this is just my take on it, is that Tommy Paul, unreal athlete, kills you with angles. Korda just took that away. He slowed it down. He didn't give him the opportunity to attack the angles. He actually, another phrase, like put it in the strike zone a lot. I thought that was a brilliant game plan. I know the wind had a lot to do with the quality and the conditions, but I don't think he gets enough credit for how smart he can be as a tennis player.
Yes, and I also think that he hit his spots on serve very well, and he was able to take control of the point, particularly on his serve, very quickly, even if the point didn't end right away. And Tommy was pretty gassed. I think he had played 4 days in a row, including having to play Learner Tien, which will fry you.
That was
physically
the
and
best. I
mentally.
mean, that was the best match in the tournament. I love that match, and it was just fantastic to see. And I believe that was the first time they met, and it was just fascinating to see them discover what works and what doesn't work against each other. And yeah, I can't speak enough about that match, but I agree. It probably took a huge chunk of his gas tank out.
Right. And earlier in the tournament, he had played Mute. And oh my gosh, that was a marathon match that, I think it took Tommy 11 match points to close it out. And there were games where it was like went to deuce a dozen times or whatever it was. So, for a guy who is still kind of coming back from a year where he was injured a lot, I think he's still, gaining his legs or whatever. But, I'm like, Tommy, like, how are you feeling? And he said, I trained for this. I'm good. But I do
Yeah.
think by the end there, it was a tough task. And Korda, again, does have the better serve.
hmm
Tommy's a better returner, but was able to take command
Yeah.
pretty quickly within the points.
Yeah, for Tommy, I know it's going to sting, but made the final, beat Fritz, which is good to have, a little bragging rights over his buddy, which I'm sure he'll let him know about. But yeah, he's getting his legs back in terms of maybe his match legs, because I don't think we doubt his conditioning and the work he puts in. But, there's a difference between being in shape or being in match shape. And I think he'll get there. And it was great to see. But, for Korda, the last thing I wanted to ask you, Amy, is do you think now this is a former top 15 player? We've seen Shelton take the next step. Fritz has had the mantle of top American. Paul's had success. Can Korda rejoin those guys and get to that level? Do you see signs that 2026 could be a year where he gets back up the rankings and in that top class of American men?
I think so. I think he'll be in the top 10 before his career is over. How far he goes from there, who knows? Like I said, I learned a lot about him. I learned a lot about his game and his temperament. He's very even keel on the court. I guess, the Czech in him, but he doesn't let things get to him too much. Even when he makes a bad mistake, he might shout out, but then he very quickly resets. It's almost Novak-like in that way. And yeah, he's got the game. He definitely has the game. I
Yeah.
did, it might have been the match with Alex that he called for the trainer, and I was like, oh no. But obviously, it was nothing serious. And
Yeah.
the other caveat is he said a number of times how much he loves playing in Florida.
Hmm.
Okay, like absolutely, he grew up there,
Yeah.
absolutely in heaven. So, note to self, Miami Open,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
maybe not some of the clay court tournaments in Europe, but
Right.
yeah.
He's had success there before. And just a note to our listeners and viewers that might not know Korda, he said he's a 6 handicap or 4 handicap golfer and the worst in his family at golf. So that's the other side of it too.
Must be nice.
Must be nice. We got more with Amy Lundy here on the Inside in Tennis podcast, recapping the Delray Beach Open and looking ahead to some other news and notes. Another point of interest, and we brought his name up earlier, but Learner Tien has been buzzing, rising up the rankings. Another great Australian Open, getting very, very far and advancing his young career. But you saw him play in person. You saw him operate in person, Amy. Lost a tough match to Tommy Paul, a tough, tight 3-setter. But the question I have is, what do you see up close that we don't see on television? What does Learner do out there that in person really stands out?
First answer, his physical fitness. I mean, I know he sweats, but it almost seems like he doesn't sweat. He's all over the court. He's a lefty, which is just really vexing, and he's got all the spins. There's something with his movement. I said this on another podcast, and I want to I'll tease it, but I want to dig more into it. His movement is much more efficient, I think. He's got some tricks that I want to explore a little more. But put it this way, I have a hypothesis that maybe he's not expending as much energy within the points somehow. His anticipation skills are kind of like otherworldly. I mean, I'm thinking back to the Kecmanovic match, and Kecmanovic was the defending champion, so that was a tough match. But Kecmanovic would have a sitter or, something in the middle of the court, and he would put everything behind a forehand, and Lerner would just be where he hit it. It's almost like Lerner knew where he was going to hit it before he knew
Got some
where.
telepathy going on here. Got some
Yeah,
stuff happening.
exactly. But I have to say this about Lerner. So I did Delray last year as well, and I interviewed Lerner there, and the number one thing that he said he was working on was his serve, okay? And his serve had been criticized. It had been picked apart online by both people who know what they're talking about and people who don't know what they're talking about. And, all this stuff with the grip and the arm isn't fully extended and this, that, and the other. And so he actually went to work on it and went to work on it with Michael Chang. And you got to look at the numbers, Mitch. They are jaw-dropping. I mean, this is a guy who, let's just take aces because that's easy for everybody to understand.
Right.
In a match, he might have 3 aces or 4 aces, something like that. Now, if you look at his ace rate, look at the number of aces he has per match. He had a match where he had 20 aces at Delray, 15, 13,
Wow.
yeah.
It sounds like it sounds like from my vantage point, he's mastering the art of spot serving because they'll show the radar gun during the tournament and it's not like blowing viewers away. So it sounds like he's hitting his targets and he's disguising what he's doing out there.
Big time. And being a lefty really helps.
Yeah.
Tommy Paul is one of the greatest returners in tennis right now. And I think Lerner only managed about 5 aces against Tommy. But to see Tommy a little bit flummoxed, somewhat trying
Yeah.
to return this serve or get a beat on it,
Wow.
particularly in that first set, that was really interesting to me. So you're right, he's found something.
The mental side and the tenacity he has, the grit, if you will, was really on display in that Tiafoe match. When you're watching it, right, third set, he's down a break, and I think love 30 on his serve.
Yeah.
Some people would say that might be checkout time, or that might be when your mind wanders, but he dug in. Tiafoe kind of did. I think it's fair to say open the door a little bit, but to stay engaged too is pretty special. So yeah, these it's tough sledding for Americans. I bring up Tiafoe to say there's no guarantee he's going to be higher up above these guys. When the younger generation, we saw, Ethan Quinn, Spizzirri have moments in Australia, Amy, they're coming and they're hungry. So it's step up or step out with the depth of American men's tennis.
Particularly Learner Tien. The guy is legit. I mean, get used to him being around 20 and maybe higher in the rankings. And, a couple of players said, when asked about Tien, they said, yeah, he's actually good. Take out the actually, guys. He is
Yeah.
good. He has arrived. Okay, he's legit. But yeah, there's a lot of other really good
Right.
players. I mean, look, this Pat Kipson beat Demonar last night,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Shout
We
out
got
to
a lot
him.
of Americans.
We chatted a couple months ago before he went to Australia, and I was, he won the reciprocal wild card race, and yeah, it shows you that the level is not that far off. We saw Michael Zhang win a match in Australia and beat Korda in Australia, and then lose an NCAA match when he got back. So it's mind-boggling stuff. I wanted to ask you about another player though before we wind down the Delray stuff, because you're the perfect person to ask about this. Rafael Jodar. I was
Yes.
watching him play. I watched him in Next Gen, kind of got familiar. He has a lot of tools, and I think he moves very well for his size. Your synopsis, I saw some of it online, but what is it like watching him play, and where is he at? Where are his strengths out there? What can he do damage on the tennis court at just his young and developmental side?
Yes, I just wrote like a scouting report type article that's available on Tennis Connected if you want to check it out. The first word that comes to mind is springy. Okay, so he's 6'3", but he has a lot of vertical leap. So if you're, for example, trying to hit a kick serve to his backhand, he can get right up there and hit down on the ball. He has a two-handed backhand. Serve, he extends past his 6'3" height. So, but right now, Mitch, he's pretty skinny. Can I say that word? He's 6'3", and he's listed at 154 pounds. So,
Wow.
he's only 19 years old, he'll beef up, they'll get the legs going and all that. What else about him? So I saw him beat Ethan Quinn, and the pattern that he was using was depth on the ground and then immediately approach the net and finish with a touch volley. He's definitely working on that pattern. Interesting, his backhand volley, he still had two hands on the racket. I don't know if that's, it's perfectly fine if it works for you, but it's not like the classic way of doing it. But then I asked him about it, and he said, yes, I am working on my volley skills.
Yeah.
He realizes that in this new day and age with Alcaraz, just being a baseliner will probably not cut it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good approach to have, especially so young in his journey, that he's seeing what the standard is identifying it. But yeah, I was watching him play last night in Acapulco, and he's got a compact swing. He blisters shots, but yeah, it's kind of nice to see him move forward, try some different tactics, and we like young talent. We want to see disruptors, so I'm a fan there. Anything else in Delray before we wind it down? Any other observations? It was a great field. We saw Casper come back. Kaboli made the semis. Anything else stand out?
I think we need to watch Taylor Fritz and see what's going on there. He's had all these injuries like knee tendonitis, which he's been trying to play through. Of course, he's Taylor Fritz. He's going to want to play through everything. Something with the ab. And of course, he shows up to his Delray media availability, and like an eye is swollen shut and he's got like pink eye. So the fact that he didn't perform particularly well and lost to Tommy Paul in this tournament doesn't concern me. But I think it's something to watch, especially with the way he likes to load up and play all surfaces and
Right.
any tournament that he can get himself into.
Well, I think the next couple weeks will be good for maybe him to regroup. I don't want to say rest because he doesn't seem like the resting type, but we know what he gears up for, and that's the slams, but also Indian Wells. So he'll be bringing his best in his home tournament. But moving on to some other tennis notes with Amy Lundy here on the Inside in Tennis podcast, we had a back-to-back 1,000 level tournament, the second in a row in Dubai, and for all the discourse on the schedule and the withdrawals and the retirements, we still ended up with semifinals that were 4 top 10 players. So we still had a very, very talented end of the tournament. It was won by Jessica Pegula. Pegula wins Dubai, gets through Anisimova yet again, and beats Svitolina in the final. Watching her play, Amy, and watching her at her best, I kept coming back to like she puts players in the torture chamber. It is just brutal to face her when she has everything going. How she can dictate terms and how she just doesn't let the opposition do what they want to do. I thought Pegula played a great strategy, and I thought it was poetic to see her do it yet again, beat Svitolina, get to another final, and win another big title at her age.
Absolutely. And I saw something online yesterday like, Pegula, you can't retire. Like, I'm like, retire? She's at her peak.
I mean, this is the best. This is the best she's looked. Yeah,
it came up in one of those podcasts or something. But that Pegula was on. So I guess it's maybe something that's on her radar, but not eminent by any means. What's interesting about the women to me right now is that Coco Gauff notwithstanding, a lot of the players are hitting very flat. And that, like Anisimova, Pegula, this works very well on a certain type of surface. And Dubai is one of those. And Jessica, like if you hit flat, the concern is margin over the net. Like, am I going to make a lot of errors? But with Pegula, she has figured out a way to rein in the errors or mitigate the errors and still hit the type of ball she likes to hit. So she's very consistent, and it's a ball that makes people very uncomfortable.
Yeah, she doesn't seem to give away many free points, and watching her return locked in, it's just special. Beats Svitolina in the final, but Anisimova again in the semis, and that's 5 in a row. 5-0 is the head-to-head. Do you think there's something with that matchup that just favors Jess specifically, Amy, or has it just been a razor-thin margin where she executes on the big points? What do you think the reason for 5-0, which isn't a coincidence at this point?
I think it's what I just said. I think it's consistency. Their type of ground stroke is very similar in terms of trajectory, except one is way more consistent than the other. And Pegula knows how to draw the errors. She knows how to bait, how to draw the shot. And how to get Amanda to overhit, to spray. So it's really about errors, call them forced or unforced, when those two meet.
She's going to be 32 this year, and I don't think she's ever looked better, which is just saying something given where she's come, and the perfect late bloomer. Also keeping people in her team that are as chill as she is. I don't know if you saw the viral moment with Coach in front of the show, Mark Knowles, where he was,
what was that?
So he's texting on his phone. He says, and I believe him, he says he's letting the team members know, like, okay, we won, and just getting notes out. And she's waiting to celebrate with him. He had his head down, and she's just staring at him. And then he looks up and gives her a hug. It was a nice little awkward moment, but no, it's great. I just, the ability to not accept the terms of her career when she was, 27, 28, and to level up has been impressive. So it's another win for somebody else in the Big Ten. This depth at the top of women's tennis right now. It's pretty tough to beat.
I think she's won a handful of thousands, right? The slam has got to be next, and she's been in a slam final, so I think that's next.
Yeah, it gets tough at that level. You know, the Sabalenka factor, who didn't play, obviously, but that's the one matchup where Iga too, but she did beat Iga at the U.S. Open and then fell to Sabalenka. You know, the other side of it too, it was Svitolina who makes another run. Somebody else that when she, really since she came back from becoming a mother has leveled up. I'm seeing, nuances
Yeah.
in her game that weren't there before. She beats
Yeah.
Coco Gauff again. So there's nothing flukish about what Svitolina is doing, Amy. She's played a top 5 player back-to-back tournaments and she's beaten her, she's beaten her twice. So it's really valid what Svitolina is doing.
She is a Jekyll and Hyde for the good, since returning from maternity leave. And that's so interesting to me because she took all the best aspects of her game before she had her baby, and now she has is playing with more aggression. It's almost like she knows, like, got to go for it
Mm,
now. Or she's let go of some of her, things that were holding her back. And she's developed into such an interesting
mhm.
and gritty player now.
It's really impressive. And she beat Coco Gauff in the semifinal. Coco Gauff's been under the microscope for a while. First round loss in Doha, gets to the semis at Dubai, a solid run for her there. We know the standards, though, for her to win these big events. And the numbers that I have on this one, and I'm just going to read them out.
Okay.
It's 12, 16, 8, and 12. Those were the number of double faults in her matches in Dubai. 48 in 4 matches. And over 100 on the year now. And we haven't gotten to March. So this is clearly a problem, Amy, and I know that this is a work in progress. And at this level, it is very hard to learn or improve things on the fly when you're playing the very best in the world. But what's your take on what's gone wrong? And, playing behind the 8 ball, she's such a fighter and she does so much well, but she's almost starting a race 50 meters behind the competition and having to catch up.
I'm not sure. On the serve, let's just talk about the serve for a second because I think the forehand's actually okay. The guy that she's brought in, I don't know anything about him, Gavin McMillan.
Yeah.
He's a biomechanics expert. I think he's done some work in some other sports. And there was a sound clip that I saw where she turned to him and said, I've done everything you asked me to do for 6 months and it's not working on the
Mhm.
serve. So that's okay. If it's not working, you could try something else. I can tell you that Learner Tien made a lot of difference on his serve in a year, and Michael Chang was a big part of that.
Mhm.
Call Michael Chang, ask his advice, see if you can get some time on court with him, try something else. I also have a thesis with Goff that she's very stubborn, and that's what makes her great. And because of the stubbornness, there may be some changes that she just doesn't want to make. Maybe she
Yeah.
believes that she can come up with a good serve, not making these changes or not letting go of some of the old habits. I don't know. It's just a guess.
It's just the fact that she is so talented and so competitively great. Stubborn, maybe, it helps a lot of great athletes. But when you give up free points like this, it's tough. It's tough to overcome when you get to the heights of this level. So I like to see, like all of us, I'd like to see her get this under control, but it's tough. It's tough to watch at times. And, these top players aren't going to show any mercy. They're trying to beat you as well. So I did have one thing that I was going to ask. Actually, it's a good segue because it's kind of a broader thing for an analytical person like yourself. The male version of this would be like Impeshi Pericard. Do you think we're going to get to a world where certain players just say, I think the percentages tell me to go for 2 first serves?
Service as a whole, first and second, how do I approach this service
Yeah.
is it's a sport within the sport, right? So if you're double faulting a lot, you have a choice. You can either take something off the first or you can take something off the second.
Right.
And how you go about that has to be tailored to who you are as an individual, including your capacity and openness to change.
Right.
So all these factors have to be considered. Um, so to answer your question, will we ever get to a point where some players are just going big on both. First of all, I think maybe that's what Coco's trying to do right now, and it's not working. Or
No.
maybe it is working. I don't know. But it's leading to a lot of frustration at minimum. So the answer to your question is it depends on the player.
It's a smart answer. Definitely is. I think Vicky and Boku's kind of doing it a little bit too, because I do feel like there's times when she's just like, I'm going to go for the first serve, maybe 1.5 speed, and on the second and see. But yeah, it's a tough one. As far as Dubai goes, putting a bow on it, Jessica Pegula will not play in Austin. I think that's a smart move, citing a knee injury, was going to try to defend her title. That's a lot of travel getting back to the States, so she's not playing this week. We saw Alex Fiala make the quarterfinals with her adoring fans. It's scary how popular she is already and has the game that matches the popularity, which is good as a show woman herself. And yeah, and then we also saw a tough loss for Mirra Andreeva in the quarterfinals against Anisimova. Andreeva is someone that is super young, but it's not worry, Amy. I'm just a little concerned with how she's processed some of these tough losses recently. There have been a couple examples of her taking it pretty hard, and maybe I dare to say putting too many expectations and putting a lot of pressure on herself.
I am worried. This has been bubbling up for a couple of years and nobody's really been talking about it. Sometimes over the course of a match, she gets very upset, and it would be one thing if she got upset, but it wasn't really impacting her game. This clearly impacts the score and her results. So maybe she needs some mental training. Who knows? But I definitely think this is an aspect of her game, that her emotional game, her mental game, that needs to be addressed, just as the physical part would be, or the technical or the tactical.
Yeah, like when Sophia Kenin won the Australian Open, that was an example of someone that was getting upset, but it wasn't affecting her game. Like she kind of harnessed it to win. Andreeva, and I love what she can do, and I think she's going to be in the mix with Mboku, Eva Jovic, this generation of women that's coming up. But like Roland Garros last year when she lost to Bosan, she just was done playing. The last 3 games of that match, she was over it. You could see it. So
you can't do that. You can't do that because, I'm stating the obvious. First of all, you're never out of it. Look at what we just saw with Learner Tien, and we've seen it a million times. Look at the greats, Djokovic at Wimbledon. You're never out of it, right? But also, it's a very slippery slope. To start giving up like that. And it's a dark place. It's not somewhere you want to go. Or if you start to go there, you got to get yourself back.
Do you have any advice for players, maybe not even the pro level, of when a match starts to crater, you start to get in your own head? Any tricks you would do to try to snap out of it, slow down, or just maybe change tactics?
Okay, so I take all advice from Novak Djokovic and everything he's ever said.
Smart, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Right. So I literally have watched interviews with him, podcasts. I've studied what he says about this, and meditation. Look, I'm the farthest thing from New Age I'm a city girl, but meditation does train you to, when negative thoughts come in, not try to block them out, but acknowledge them and let them pass. And you have to do it time and time again. And there's a reason they call it a practice, because it takes practice. So Novak would tell you that this is something that you really have to work on off court, and recentering and emotional management, because he just said recently that he really does simmer sometimes, and there is a huge fire, and then he manages to reset because of all the training he's done.
What he's been able to do, and I totally agree, it's perfect, it's well said. Mental toughness is bestowed on people, and it's fair, but he views it as strength. He views it as, I built up my mental strength, and we've seen it, because you can look at an early Djokovic match, you can look at what he got as he got older and how much stronger he got, and it's clear he put the time in. So I think that's a great way to live your life, and just follow the advice that Djokovic has in terms of his tennis training and his IQ and what he did, Amy, in Australia. I had to ask you because you're one of the Djokovic experts I know. it's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable that he just keeps performing in big moments at his age. And I just I can't stop marveling at what this man can do as he enters the latter stages, I think, the latter stages of his career.
He says he might play the Olympics again, so you never know.
Yeah.
It is incredible. He's moving the goalposts. He's setting new boundaries. He's stretching this. It's very Tom Brady-like. I think that's a very apt comparison and analogy. And it's fun to see, and we should enjoy it.
Yeah.
Really enjoy it and marvel at it, and take things from it that we can apply to our own lives. I find it very inspirational.
Yeah, very inspired for sure. Amy Lundy, this was a blast. Always is catching up with you, talking tennis. What's next in your travels or covering tennis? What do you have as we have, some time in the States to cover and watch this great game?
I got two things. I want to talk about this. I haven't told anyone. I'm going to be coaching for the first time tennis. Yes, high school girls, and I'm super, super excited about it because I've been an athlete, I've been a journalist, but I've never been a coach. So this is going to be fun. I'm going to see the sport from a different perspective. So that starts soon, but before that starts, I'm going to run out to Indian Wells for a few days and chase down some stories there.
Awesome. Well, the girls are lucky, I can say, that you're going to be joining the staff.
Thanks.
So appreciate that contribution to the game. Always a blast, Amy. Always welcome on the show. That's Amy Lundy. Check out her stuff. Great on social media. Great on Tennis Connected, the 3 podcast. Thanks again for coming on the show.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks so much, Mitch.
That was Amy Lundy. This was the Inside in Tennis podcast, all part of the Believe Network and available wherever you get your podcasts. Go to Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon Music, wherever you get your shows. Search Inside in Tennis podcast. Leave a nice rating and a review if you're so kind, and hit that subscribe button so every episode's automatically downloaded to your listening device one time only. And you can watch the video episodes on the YouTube channel at Mitch Michals for all of our outstanding content. So it's going to be a great couple months here stateside, and then right into Roland Garros, the road to Roland Garros, and the tennis season will just continue to go along. But for Amy Lundy, I'm Mitch Michals. Thank you for listening to the Inside in Tennis podcast, and I'll talk to you soon.